Welcome to the Healthy Habit Hotseat, where we chat to extraordinary humans and world-leading health experts to dive deep into the intricacies of the daily healthy habits that have shaped their success. Remember, success leaves clues, right? I'm your host and resident healthy habit coach, Loz Antonenko, and I cannot wait to help you re-energize your life so you too can create opportunity, vitality, and abundance to become the master of your own incredible healthy destiny. Now, let's get into today's conversation. I am absolutely thrilled to speak with Dr. John Demartini again today. Dr. Demartini is someone who has dedicated his life to the study and understanding of universal laws. Today I turn the tables on the good doctor and dive deep into the daily intricacies of his habits and routines to learn more about his goals and strategies for happiness and abundance. I'm fascinated by the way that you live your life. So in the previous episode, you spoke to us about your healthiest habit being that you drank a lot of water in the day. And I'm sure our audience would love to know, do you, Dr. John Demartini, have any bad habits?
Well, I don't think in terms of moral goods and bad so much in my life. I have habits that there's a spectrum of people on the planet with different values. And if I meet somebody that has similar values to me, they'll look at me as dedicated, perseverant, determined, consistent, focused. But if I meet somebody that has a complete opposite set of values and thinks what I'm doing is insignificant or wrong in their values, they'll see me as pig-headed, rigid, stubborn, unwilling to change, stuck for the same behavior. So to those individuals, I would be perceived quite different. But I acknowledge that all of those are true to people's perspective. So I did a presentation on efficiency, how to live a more efficient life, effective life. And the gentleman that came to it and attended it followed the instructions and went back to his business and just excelled in his business because of it. And his boss, who had similar values, was so stoked and inspired to see him efficient. He was making more accomplishments and more goals achieved. And the boss said, ever since you went to that Demartini seminar, you really excelled. But at the same time, because he was getting so much acknowledgement there, he spent more time at work, more hours. And his wife, who had a different set of values because she had young children, wanted him home with the kids and everything else. And her perception was, ever since you went to that damn Demartini seminar, you've now lost focus on what's important in life. So she was projecting her values onto him. The boss was projecting values. They had a completely different set of values. And one labeled me good, and I had done something good, and one labeled me bad, I had done something bad. I don't pay much attention to those moral projections. I am who I am, and I have both what people call good and bad traits. I'm neither nice or mean or kind or cruel or positive or negative or peaceful or wrathful. I'm all the above. If you support my values, I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm a pussycat. You challenge my values, I can be a tiger.
Yeah. So
I don't tend to think of the moral construct. I tend to think of I'm a human being with all the values and traits, and so I don't know how to answer that question without just using some sort of artificial value system by somebody.
So in your daily practice, is there any daily habits to do with your vitality, your health, and your long-term wellness that you'd like to shift, or do you think you're doing life pretty well?
I don't have a regret to I want to shift anything. I'm grateful for my life. I feel that when I feel I have a need something, I just go do it.
Excellent.
If I feel like I'm not getting enough exercise, I reschedule my system so I get my exercise. If I feel like I'm not getting the food I do, I'll just pay somebody to go get it. I don't see those side of things in the way of what I want to do.
So you host live events weekly all around the world. Do you have some sort of morning routine to maintain a level of homeostasis in your biorhythm?
Because I travel so consistently, I don't think I have a typical biorhythm. I flew in from Dublin and I got in here Friday night, and then I did those 2 days full on. I don't get jet lag. I've not ever recovered or had to deal with that kind of stuff. I just go in there, and as long as I get a bit of rest, I'm running. And I don't know if I have a typical daily routine because I don't stay in one place. And I've been in Tokyo, I've been in London, I've been in Dublin, I've been in Abu Dhabi, I've been here, throughout Australia. I was in Taipei all in the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
Wow.
So I don't have a time zone that I call, that's a steady time zone because I'm never in one place for more than a week or two.
You don't run on parallel time, you just run in...
Yeah, I don't
in
have...
a different level.
I don't know, people go, I don't know how, people have actually tried to follow me around for a period of time. And someone say, I'm going to follow you for a month and just, and they don't make it. They just go, this is nuts. And I go, it's not nuts once you're in the habit of it. But my routine in the morning is, I usually make the hotel wake me up. I tell them I want a certain time. Sometimes I'm up right there just spontaneously. But sometimes because of my schedule at time hours, I have them do that. I don't carry a cell phone. I don't use a cell phone. So I'm kind of a freak on that because I don't like the distractions of the cell phone. I see people living their whole life by it. And I'll get up and then I'll go through, I have a journal that I don't have right here on my computer there. And I keep records of everything I'm grateful for. So you'll be typed in there in this interview. It'll go in there today. And all the things that I have the opportunity to do, all the people I meet, I'll be glad to show it to you. I keep record of.
Love to see it.
And that way I do that, and before I go to bed, I'm now grateful because these are all the things of gratitude. And then in the morning I run through those again. And then I already know my priorities. I wrote down my priorities every single day, the highest priority actions I could do each day, because I asked that question. And then after a while I found out what were the highest priorities of the highest priorities. And then I delegate everything else out, so I don't have anything else to do but the highest priorities. And that liberates us from a lot of self-depreciating activities every day.
That's fascinating. How many hours sleep do you get on average per night? Obviously, it could be disrupted. And you just spoke about your bedtime ritual. So as part of that, you journal. So what does your ritual look like? Could you just run us through that?
Well, the last thing I'm doing usually is doing that journal, that gratitude journal. It's called the State of My Mission book. It's 5,000 pages of nothing but gratitude and my goals and objectives. But I do that. Sometimes I'll research a lot. I'm spending time reading constantly. So I'm reading, I carry books, like that bag over there is nothing but books. And in my bag I probably have, I don't know how many books in there, but I carry books with me. And then I'm reading magazines and books and online articles. I knocked out about 10 of them this morning. And I'm constantly trying to learn. So I'll either learn or do my gratitudes before I hit the sack, because I like having creative ideas going to bed. And I like to have gratitude, attitude, and creative ideas before I go to bed, because then I mull those over and come up with usually innovative ideas by the morning. And I have things that I'm grateful for, and that starts the day. And then I find my highest priority actions I already know. It's research, write, travel, teach. So I just, because I've delegated everything else, I don't need to do anything else. I get up, I do interviews, I get up, I teach, I get up, I research, I write, or I'm flying somewhere.
Do you wake up and jump out of bed?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I get up and sometimes do my push-ups, and yeah.
Push-ups are so underrated. I think for a man to maintain muscle mass, I tell all of my clients over 40, if they're not exercising regularly, just do push-ups, mate. Get on the floor, drop and give me 20. And if you can add one more and then one more, you get the compound effect.
Yeah. No, because I'm probably going to accelerate a little bit of energy into, not probably, I am going to accelerate some energy into a little bit more workouts between now and November 25th, because to ride big waves, you need to be in shape. So I'm going to be working on getting ready for that.
Excellent. You speak about how most people use meditation as a form of escape rather than as an experience of deep love and intrinsic connection. Can you describe your go-to meditative practice?
Well, I studied many different meditation techniques since 1972, starting with alpha meditation, and studied Jnana Yoga meditation, and I studied TM and all those kind of things. Many of them, I don't know, maybe 20 different meditation techniques. I just kind of synthesize them and put them into the Demartini variable meditation technique. I don't have this ritual that I think, I have to do this. I've learned about breathing. I've learned about focus. I've learned a lot about that. So I can be on a plane and I can meditate. I could be in my room. I could be standing in an elevator and meditate, a quick meditation. I know how to go into a deep meditative state pretty quick. I just find that many people are having challenge and they go, oh, I need to meditate instead, and kind of escape the challenge. I'd rather go and find the hidden order in the thing that I thought was a challenge, discover the hidden order in the chaos. So there's nothing there to escape. There's something to appreciate. And that allows you to have less noise in the brain and more into the meditative state quickly.
Man, that's so deep. That's what I do.
Because many people say, well, this is stressful, I don't like this. And then they go and they meditate and go into a kind of a dissociative state of escaping that.
It's distraction.
They're dissociating.
Yeah.
And I go, well, why? There's nothing to dissociate. If you have to dissociate, you're not seeing what's there. There's a magnificence there. Go find it.
Yeah.
So I'd rather ask different set of questions and find the hidden order in there.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there to have to meditate as escape, but to meditate to appreciate.
So for just shy of half a century, one of your daily mantras has been, I am a genius and I apply my wisdom. I've actually started saying that. These simple words have had a profound impact on the way you live your life. What's your position on the trend of using extrinsic personal development tools such as affirmation cards and vision boards?
Well, I just addressed this yesterday. The word affirmation means the condition of firmness in one's mind. And a statement, a peppy little positive statement, does not do that. It actually polarizes the minds and causes volatility. Because if you said, I'm always happy, I'm never sad, your bullshit meter would go off really quick.
Yeah.
But if you said, whether I'm supported or challenged, whether I feel praised or reprimanded, I'm grateful, for I know that they're both in synchronicity and they're guiding me to my most authentic self. So I use statements that remind me of principles that are true that you can live your life by, and use those as reminders to live efficiently, more so than set up fantasies in my life of one-sided outcomes. The addiction to one side breeds a bipolar nature. The Buddha says the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is a source of human suffering. So we suffer when we pursue fantasies and we create nightmares as a result. True objectives, which means even-minded, are more meaningful. They're the mean between the polarities. So I'd rather set a real objective and put a statement together that's more grounded and more objective. So then you remind yourself of the principles that allow you to achieve the things you desire to achieve.
What about vision boards? Do you use visual representations of goals that you want to achieve? Because obviously a goal is just a dream with a plan.
Well, because I travel, I don't carry a vision board.
Yeah.
I have a vision book.
Yeah, right.
And my vision book is on my computer, and occasionally I print it. But the vision book is filled with pictures. I'll give you an example. I had a dream to travel to every country and to teach. So what I did is I figured that most likely I would be in big cities most of the time. So I made a collection of all large cities that had 3 million population up to 35 million population. Prioritized those alphabetically. And then had a goal to go to those cities to teach. So I went and looked at ballrooms, the theaters, and the great hotel ballrooms, convention centers, and theaters of these cities, and looked at the major places, the most probable places I would probably speak at. And then I cut and paste that off the internet when the internet came along. And then so I have the city and I have the places, and I just read the city and look at that. And then I keep records of all the cities I've spoken in, which is 2,037 now. And I will then also write down the cities that I've actually achieved, the ones that are in the making. So I'm a very metric-oriented guy. I keep records of the goals because I found that when I'm really committed to a goal, I want to find out what I'm doing and not doing that's moving me closer to that goal.
Because success leaves clues.
Yeah, and so I ask myself, what is it I would absolutely love to do in life? How do I get handsomely and beautifully paid to do it? What are the highest priority actions I can do today that will move me a step towards manifesting that? What obstacles might I run into, and what do I do to solve them in advance? What worked, what didn't work today? How do I do it more effectively and efficiently tomorrow? And how did whatever I experienced today, how did it help me get my goal?
And it makes such sense when you break it down like that. And I think the biggest struggle for people is they should all over themselves. I think that was a quote I got from Tony Robbins. And, you know, I should do this and I should do that. But unless you're planning and strategizing and really visualizing, putting yourself in that place, you know, if you're wanting to speak in an auditorium with 10,000 people, you put all the pieces of the puzzle in place so that you can make that happen.
Yeah. Well, I had many years ago, I want to guess I was in my 20s, I saw a movie on the great Houdini, the magician and escape artist. And he was performing at the Palladium in London. And there was in the balcony on the left up was royalty watching. And I remember him bowing, and at the very end he put his arms like this. And I cut and pasted that segment of that and held that as my vision. In 2009, I had the opportunity to speak to a full Palladium with royalty in the balcony. And I got tears in my eyes when I realized that I'd been holding that vision for 20-something years and seeing that in my mind's eye. And when I got to ask to perform there, speak there, I ended it with my hands. I could show you a picture of it. I ended it with my hands.
Man, you're going to make me cry, because that's just so beautiful.
Well, it literally, the final thing was exactly what I had envisioned. And so, you know, the probability of that was, I think, accelerated by being, you know, focused on it.
Yeah.
That was a clear focus.
And you
I
could,
have that picture. I can show you that
you
picture.
could see it. You know, you could see it, you could feel it, you could taste it. And, you know, I think a lot of people lose touch. They're so busy comparing themselves to other people. And comparison is robbing you.
That's the number one thing that undermines people's achievements.
100%.
Comparison. You're here to compare your daily actions to your own highest priorities.
Yeah.
Not other people's.
Yeah.
I had something from a vision board. I guess you could call it a vision book. In 1999, right before 2000, I was speaking in Rome, doing the breakthrough experience, which I've done 1,080 times now.
Where do you do it in Rome?
I did it at a Shangri-La something hotel. I don't know.
Some gig.
This one was a place that I did not anticipate, but it was just on the periphery of Rome. It was a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Had a lot of land around it, so it was nice. Beautiful gardens. And after I did the program on Saturday and Sunday, a lovely lady named Antonella asked if I'd like to have a bit of a tour before I left out that evening, the next day on Monday. I said, I'd love to. Now, I'd been to Rome and I'd been toured, but there's always new places to see. There's such a, you know, diverse thing to see. So we went into and walked around, and we came across a square right after lunch that was roped off, and the entire square, the size of about a soccer field, was red rose petals covered. So there must have been millions of red rose petals on the ground. In the center of the square was a bronze statue on a marble base of Giordano Bruno, the mathematician, philosopher, theologian, mystic.
The legend.
The legend. And they were honoring him that day, 400 years from the day they burned him at the stake, because he said that we lived in an infinite universe with infinite worlds with infinite beings, which is now exobiology, and exoplanets have been numerable, almost 4,000 to 5,000 now. So what he said became true, but nobody could see it at the time. And they burned him at the stake because he went against the Aristotle and Ptolemaic Christian belief system at the time. And what was interesting is, before he died, he wrote a posthumous biography of how he wanted to be perceived 500 years into the future. And so I had read that, and I was inspired by that. And after going to that, I decided that night, when I took off and flew, that I'd write my posthumous biography of how I want to be perceived 1,000 years into the future. Kind of like what if you looked on Wikipedia 1,000 years, that's what they would say, kind of thing. And it came out 23 pages. I was in a spontaneous writing mode, inspired writing, kind of like Jerry Maguire with Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire. And I just started pouring out what was inspiring to me. And it was deeply meaningful things of how I wanted to make a difference in the world, kind of thing. So that was right at 1999 to 2000, just a few months, October right before 2000. And in 2009, 9 years later, I was asked to speak at the Melk Abbey in Austria. And there were 200 people from around the world there, leaders. And there was 12 of us that were speaking. Muhammad Yunus, who's a Nobel Prize winner, the Dalai Lama was there, Wolf Singer from the Max Planck Institute, myself. There's about 12 speakers. And Paul Nurtz, another Nobel Prize winner on biology and genetics. And it was my contribution to that program was about conflict resolution and dealing with different values of people. After Saturday night, the Saturday night ritual, we were all asked to go into the main library at the Milk Abbey, which is a beautiful library. It looks like a Sistine Chapel kind of thing. And we were put into a semicircle, and all the people from the program, the 200 people, all gathered around behind us and in front and kind of surrounding us. And they honored us with a stainless steel cylinder about that big and stainless steel airtight sealed that had my name on it, the date. And in there they had taken 365 quotations from my books and the Demartini method, which is the conflict resolution method that I was presenting, and they calligraphied it on scroll paper, put a ribbon around it, put it inside, and air vacuumed it to be preserved. And then we walked down through this library, down to this final room at the end of the library called the Infinity of Divinity Library Room. And in there they have very rare manuscripts and rare collectibles in there. And it's a vault. So they opened up the vault and they let us go in. And there's a 12-foot Infinity of Divinity library shelf there. And I got to put mine right in the center of that library shelf. And I've talked about it, the Infinity of Divinity, as a theological principle many times. And so I thought it was, wow, it's amazing that I'm actually getting to put my writings in there. And then that room is airtight, sealed to preserve scrolls and manuscripts. And it would be there for 1,000 years. So I wrote the posthumous biography. And 9 years later, I had an opportunity to make sure that my work will be around for 1,000 years. So most people don't, they go around and say they're immortal souls, but they rarely write immortal goals.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to allow their telos and their telomeres to extend towards the path of immortality.
That's, I mean, just to experience what you've just described, I literally can feel what that must feel like.
It was amazing.
You know, that's just life-changing. Absolutely.
Well, I didn't know that was going to happen.
No.
Saturday night, I had no idea that was going to happen. And I just got a tear in my eye because tears are guides,
yes,
intuitive guides and inspired states. And I just sat there and I go, wow, important. Why that special writing when I was in Rome?
Well, you brought tears to me just then, just describing it.
So I update that posthumous biography every time something comes to me and I need to add to it. So I'm working on my objectives and my gratitude book and my metrics every day. Every day I work on that.
Well, you have to, because life is all just moment to moment.
It's the most significant book I have. It's 24 volumes of 5,000 pages because I can't get all the pictures onto files. So it's 24 files.
Oh, man, I love it. I absolutely love using biohacks to improve my quality of life on the daily. Australian holistic wellness experts, Enlighten Therapies, offer non-invasive, non-toxic and natural solutions to heal and maintain your body and health. Known for their thermal therapy devices, bio blankets and pillows, the company aims to help everybody heal. Founders Paul and Colleen proudly present the energetic therapy device, ENAR, that facilitates both pain relief and healing. I'm actually an advanced ENAR therapist myself. I use this incredible compact device every single day on not only myself, but my friends and family to help increase energy and improve overall vitality. Want to learn more? Visit enlightenedtherapies.com and use LOZ10 for 10% off your purchase. So you're the master of playing to your strengths by outsourcing tasks that aren't conducive to your highest values and life purpose. How did you start to align your purpose with your passion?
Well, etymologically, the word passion means to suffer.
Interesting.
Most people don't know that. For some reason, since 1985, when The Passion for Excellence came out with Tom Peters and the woman, there was a change in its meaning. And today people think that, they now think that passion's your enthusiastic, driven kind of self. But passion means to suffer. Compassion means to suffer with somebody. So I don't consider myself a compassionate individual or passionate individual. I'm a man on a mission. A mission is different than a passion. An inspired mission is what I do, not so much a passion. Passion means ungoverned, uncontrolled pursuit of a one-sided outcome that elates, and it's ungovernable. So that's the reason why the Buddha says the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of human suffering, because if you strive for a one-sided life and ignore the other side of life, you're going to suffer. So that's where passion meant. So I'm not a passionate individual. I'm more of an inspired missionary.
I love that. I love that. You're driven by your inspired mission, because I actually put the word passion, so I'm going to scrap that. You're driven by what inspires you the most, and you seem to get a lot done. What are your top 3 tips for daily purposeful productivity?
Well, if you ask yourself, Gary Keller wrote a book called The One Thing.
I just read it before I read yours.
It's a great book. I've lectured for Gary Keller's company many times. He was talking about how important it is to find that one thing. My one thing is teaching, and I research every day for the sake of that. There's nothing I prefer to do more than that. That's what I love doing. I don't have a desire to get away from it. I don't need to escape it. I don't need a vacation from it. It is a vacation. So if you ask yourself repeatedly, what do you spontaneously do that nobody has to remind you to do? Because your highest value is a spontaneously called intrinsic value and highest value that you automatically do. If you identify what you spontaneously do, that you love doing, that makes a contribution to humanity, and focus on that and delegate everything else away, you have an amazing life. But most people, what they do is they live in shoulds and ought tos and got tos and have tos and must, because they're subordinating to outer authorities and injecting the superegos of other people into their life that supersedes their own higher self and dilutes the power, that potential that they have innately wanting to express. And so they end up scattering themselves and fragmenting themselves instead of integrating themselves and focusing themselves. And if they just stick to the highest priority actions every day, their self-worth goes up, their achievements go up, their confidence goes up, their willingness to receive goes up, and gives goes up. And they're more objective and more manageable, because the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the executive center of the brain, where inspired vision, strategic planning, executing plans, and self-governance is mastered. So just prioritizing your life. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day fills up with low priority distractions that don't. And the low priority distractions that don't create chaos in your life as a feedback to let you know you're in a direction that's not you. You're inauthentic. So the most authentic identity you can wrap your brain around, your ontological being, is the highest value. So I just stick to that. That's it. If the person just does that every day, their life changes.
Do you time block?
Well, in a day, I've delegated that, believe it or not. I have over there that colored sheet. You can probably see it over there.
Yeah.
I have my day. I've made a list of all the priorities. So, for instance,
can I grab it?
Well, that one.
Not yet.
That's just today.
Okay.
So what happens is you can see it, but what it is I have a higher priority list. Out of all the things I can do as far as teaching, there's so many things I can do teaching. I can teach in keynote speeches to large audiences. I can teach to seminars that are more moderate audiences. I can do workshops, which are smaller audiences. I can do webinars, I can do podcasts, I can do radio, I can do television, I can do social media interviews. There's a list of all the medias. They've been prioritized. They're and all the way down to individual consulting, speaking one-on-one. That's still teaching. So I've got every list of forms of teaching that is available, all prioritized, handed to a team. Their job is to fill my day according to priority and rearrange if something comes in that's more priority to shift priorities to fill my day with the highest priority things. So I even delegate my own priorities over to people so I don't have to think about that. It's just filled.
Do you schedule thinking time?
They automatically have a certain amount of time for my research that's in there. That's a given.
Is that a morning or an evening thing for you?
It varies. It varies
Yeah.
because sometimes I tell them that my research is important, but if I get an opportunity, like I got an opportunity to speak to 250 million people in a Russian television for an hour, and they wanted to do it at strange hours. So I would say, if those types of things, because of the priorities, I put my research in priority, so they know that if all of a sudden something like that is surfaces, they'll rearrange that, and I'll do my research at a different time. So they know my priorities. It's been outlined. Their job is to fill my day with the priorities.
So what's the one thing you're focusing on this week, and what measures will you put in place to give it energy?
Well, I'm finishing up some magazine summaries. I'm writing some articles that I do, because I write for 1,400 magazines around the world. And then what I do is I also am working on a book on you might say it's astrophysics, but it's a journey of a human consciousness to star. It's the relationship of intelligence on a planet into stars. And people go, what's that about? But it's a really amazing thing. It's basically how intelligence is stored in atomic structures, and how atomic structures are conserved, and how they are moving through space and moving through the solar system and the galaxies and recycled. And there's a unitarity principle in physics that Stephen Hawking was mentioning before he passed. I recently had the opportunity to be involved in a movie with Stephen Hawking. I just filmed for that in London the other day, and that was very inspiring, because I had written a book on astrophysics, 2 volumes on astrophysics, a 1,000-page textbook, 2-volume text on astrophysics. So I work in that area too.
Yeah. Wow. You're amazing. Like, you just get everything done, John. You just get it done.
I surround myself with people that help me get a lot of things done.
Yeah.
What I get done is what I get done, but
you just play to your strengths.
A lot of other people do a lot of things that like I get my itinerary every day, and it gets updated either under the door in my hotel room, or it comes in electronically, so I know what my schedule is. And I found myself, it's probably the wisest thing to do is just hire women to tell me what to do.
I do that. I think you were actually interviewed by Kerwin Ray not that long ago.
Yes.
I just started following him, and I think he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week, and it's automate, delegate, eliminate. He's got these tips, and if you can just start to integrate those into your life. Man, I outsource everything. I've just learnt to do this probably in the last 12 months, and it allows you to work to your highest priorities and just get shit done.
Yes.
That you can do really, really well. And I go, go do my washing. I haven't outsourced my driving yet.
Yeah, I haven't driven in 30 years.
Yeah.
I haven't cooked since I was 24, so 40.
Would you know?
Years.
Would you know what to do if they said this is
I have no
not
desire of that.
Yeah.
No interest in it. I'd rather
pay somebody that can do it well.
I'd rather go to Alan Wong's restaurant in King Street and get some quality food from his restaurant, be a master chef. I don't have any desire to do that. There's some things that I'm purposefully ignorant about. I have no desire to do it. I just hire people to do that.
Purposeful ignorance. I actually love that.
Yeah.
Purposeful ignorance.
Yeah, I have no interest in that. So people, think, how can you do it? And I said, well, you just have the right email to get it done. Somebody will get it done for you.
Yeah. So you spoke about how for your 65th birthday, you're going to go surfing.
Yeah.
I know you'd consider yourself a teacher, but really you're a surfer at heart. What's the most challenging break you've mastered, and why was it such a challenge?
Well, I don't know if I've mastered any break.
Yeah. This could be a hypothetical question, the waves of life, the breaks of life, but it could be a very literal question.
My surfing career started when I was 9, and they had big clunking boards in those days. And the very first time I ever got up onto a board, for some reason I was able to ride a wave. I don't know how, just did it. When I was 13, I ended up going out to Freeport, Texas, which is not the surf capital of the world, but during hurricanes you get waves. And I started to become a surfer more formally. I was 14, I hitchhiked out to California, and I lived in Huntington Beach, California, and surfed up and down the West Coast and down into Mexico, throughout Mexico, down to Acapulco and places, to Puerto Escondido, all the way down. Then I was 15, I went to Hawaii and North Shore, and I lived under the Kamehameha Highway Sunset Bridge first, but that was too noisy to sleep. I moved to Ikai Beach Park, which is where Pipeline is, and I lived under a bridge, a park bench, and then a bathroom. Then I lived in an abandoned car near there. And finally I moved into a grass house, kind of a tent combination. And my day consists of surfing about 11 hours a day.
Wow.
And over time you get a little better at it, and you end up getting bigger waves. And living on the North Shore, you got to learn how to do things quick. So I can't say that I was ever in the top tiers of surfing. I did get in a book called High Surf, which is a noted book on the surfing. I did get into 3 movies in surfing. I did ride up to 40-foot face waves, and I have some pictures of that. But I can't say that I was ever in the competitive market. I was more, there were 2 styles in the North Shore. People that were into competitive and people that just wanted to surf for the sake of surfing.
For freedom.
I was surf freedom. But I did get to ride Waimea Bay, Sunset Beach, Pipeline, and on relatively big days. Not closeout days, but some of the big days. And I had many close calls, many times where I thought that this is going to be the day. And I almost died on a big day at Lani Kea. But luckily, I made it through that.
No luck.
But I had some close calls and a lot of scars all over my body for that.
To remind you.
Laird Hamilton was 7, and I lived there at the Eka Beach Park, and he was abandoned by his mom.
Wow.
And he lived there at the park on the beach. And I used to see him in the morning. We'd sometimes go to the same bathroom there because I was living there in the park myself. And Bill Hamilton took him over and adopted him, and then found his real mother, and then married her and put the family together again.
What a story.
So it's an amazing story, and that gentleman has done enormous
Yes.
contribution to water sports. I mean, no one's done what he's done. And so I used to watch him, and we used to surf. I remember surfing Pipeline with him. That was quite interesting. But he was in a league beyond me.
How would you describe the feeling of riding? You just said you've ridden some pretty big waves. What does that feel like for you?
Well, each wave is.
Can you even articulate that in words?
Yeah, when it's really fast and it's a real freight train kind of tube wave, it's like riding it in a freight train. It's amazing.
You've got to live in the moment. That's what I love about surfing.
It forces you to be present.
Yes.
And when you do, you're able to dance the wave, and it guides you. It kind of whispers to you, it kind of tells you. But I can't say that I had the testosterone that some of those guys did. And I think I had a bit more estrogen than some of them. Some of them were really outrageously daring guys that had death wishes, I think. I wasn't quite in that category, but I did surf. And I remember surfing La Libertad in El Salvador on a giant wave. And it was a giant right, river mouth peak point break that goes and just goes and goes and goes like a quarter of a mile. And it was and these were big waves. And I remember riding that, and that was one of the most amazing days because your legs are getting tired by the time you finish that wave.
You lock that memory away and come back to it.
But I got to surf. Pipeline is more of a quick, it's only lasts seconds, minute maybe. And but some of these long point races, Montichin Bay in San Blas is another one you can ride and ride and ride and ride for. And you could sit on your board and ride and then get back up again and ride. It just goes on and on and on and on.
Never-ending theme park. It's so much better than anything like that.
Each wave is different.
Yeah.
And some are just incredible drop-ins and tube and out. Some are long, long rides. Some are really daring rock. You're sitting there in front of the rocks and the coral, and if you don't make it just right, you can get pretty busted up pretty good. And yeah, I mean, there's some that have nice sharks too. You got to deal with the sharks.
Just sounds like life, doesn't it? That's what I love about surfing.
Yeah, surfing is a metaphor for life.
100%, 100%. It's a mission for you to help others connect with their highest purpose. On a personal level, you've helped me unlock the handbrakes on my own life just to get on with it and really set meaningful goals. And I'd really love to know what's your most ambitious goal for 2020 and how are you going to make it a reality?
Well, I'm going to present my program on the relationship between intention, consciousness, and the solar system. I'm going to be doing that. So that's something I'll probably have a couple hundred people attend that from around the world. I'm working on another book on grief. I've developed a methodology that's been studied in university on grief resolution. I have a very incredible track record on that one, and I think that's an inspiring contribution because I've found a science on how to duplicatable, reproducible system to be able to dissolve grief in just a matter of a couple hours. And I've done 3,556 deaths, grief processes, Cato University says we've never had anything with a 100% record on it. And so I'm publishing a book on that. And I've got more countries to get to. I'm doing Cambodia. I'll be in Sri Lanka. I'm doing Istanbul next year. So I'm going to try to get another 5 countries in next year.
Nice.
So I'm just I'm always researching, writing, and I'm doing some more movies and films. There's a movie coming out on my breakthrough experience, and there's now a comedy. I just met with a guy in London, and there's a gentleman, Jimmy Lance, that's planning on producing a comedy about my life, which is quite interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate that. I can't say that I had that on my goal book. It just, I did have a goal to be in the movies.
Fair to teach you something.
Yeah, we're in number 43 that I've filmed in. But this one I didn't expect, and he said he was attending the breakthrough experience and said, you have a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I'm not trying to be, sometimes there's funny stories. He says, well, I made note of them, and I want that in a movie. We're going to make a movie around some of the funny things that you've done in your life. And I said, okay, great.
Go for it.
So
I must admit, I came to your seminar listening to you speak because you're so authentically in touch with the person you are. It just comes through humorously, and it is quite a challenge because you're dealing with things, especially with grief, and you do need to humorize that in a way so that people understand. So yeah, I can see how that resonates now.
The lady yesterday, I dealt with a grief lady. Her man died, and so she was having this grief, she said. And so by the time we got through, and I said, well, grief is the perception of loss of that which you infatuate with, or the perception of gain of that which you resent. There's only 2 forms of stress in life: the perception of loss of that which you seek, and the perception of gain of that which you're trying to avoid. I said, and so as long as you hold on to a fantasy of who he is that you're infatuated with, you're going to grieve. So let's take the things you're infatuated with and let's find the other side, because there's always 2 sides to it. And we started outlining some of the downsides of the things that she was infatuated with. We popped the infatuation, and then she was going, he died at the perfect time. Mm-hmm. and the people went, whoa, didn't expect that. But many people don't realize that they compare, when somebody passes, they compare it to what they think it should have been. But where's that coming from? That's an artificial assumption.
Yeah.
Instead of honoring what it is. And when I see people, when they know they're about to die, I don't see anybody wishing that the people that were left grieved.
Yes.
Most people say, I want them to live their life to the fullest.
Yes.
So I think, well, there's no motive for this other than our own perception of loss and withdrawal from things we were infatuated with. So I found a way of dissolving all that and helping people get present and just go on. Why would we want to see anything except everything on the way?
Of course. Everything is always on the way.
I tell people, you have control of your perceptions, decisions, and actions.
Yeah, that's it.
And if you become a victim of history, it's because of your perception, decisions, and actions. You can be a master of destiny if you change those. So I don't support people's victim mentality.
Yes.
Because I don't find that productive.
It's not.
I find that useless. But what I do is I go in there and I help them find how whatever happened in their life served them. I had a young boy, he was a teenager, and he'd been going to therapy for many, many years because he ran the story, and his therapist ran the story, that he was an abandoned child and then put in a foster home and then eventually probably into an orphanage and then into a foster family. And he believed that his mother thought he was useless and no good, and he ran this story, and the therapist took stats and said, well, when people have abandonment like that, they have these problems, and they fed that. And I told the therapist to leave. I said, you're not caring about the child. Let's go and have the child from it, the teenager. And I said, so at the moment your mom left you, who became all the traits that you thought you missed from your mom? And we identified everybody who played out the role. And then once we identified quantitatively all the roles, I said, so now, what's the benefit of them doing it instead of your mom? Well, my mom had bipolar condition and couldn't have been working, and it would have been a crazy environment. And what I got, the people I got, had a higher level of socioeconomics, more educated, more stable. I ended up doing this and that. I said, and I stacked up the benefits of this and the drawbacks of this, not to discredit the mom, but just to put it back out of the fantasy. And then when I was through, I said, now I'm going to come over here. And we went on the internet, and I said, let's look up how many famous people that have made major differences in the world that started out as abandoned orphans. Sir Isaac Newton was an example. His father died, and his mother had to leave him when he was very young to try to find another man to be able to take care of her because she had no income. And I started going through all the list, and I showed him 700 names of famous people. And if he didn't know the names, we looked it up on the internet, and the famous person goes, wow. I said, you're in this category.
Wow.
And his life changed. And
in a moment.
I told him, I said, walk away from that psychologist. That psychologist is keeping you stuck. Get on with hanging out with people that are stretchers, not shrinks. And his life changed. And he started excelling in school. He started thanking his family. He started appreciating his mother. He started realizing he didn't want to let his mother down because she gave him to somebody who she thought would give him a greater opportunity. And so that was an act of love. He turned the whole thing into a different perspective. And he realized that he had a gift, not a loss. And that changed his whole life. And he just excelled after that. And that's just one new shift in that perspective.
And it is. And it's about rewiring, conditioned patterns of thought. And once you start to interject in your own patterns of thinking and you start to create stimulus, and it shifts everything. I come from such a place of love, and everything that my husband, what you've just said, with that particular teenager, everything that I saw in my husband that I loved, and that I put him on a pedestal, and I see that now in everyone. I've remarried. People didn't understand. I don't give a shit what other people think. Other people's opinions are none of my business. And I remarried, found my star boy. We've just got such beautiful synergy, and that's just the way it was always meant to be. So,
well, to see it any other way is a burden in your psyche. So why do it?
Of course,
it's a pointless pursuit.
Mm.
So I tell people that it's not what happens to you; it's what you decide to do with it.
Yeah. Dr. Demartini, I just want to finally say, your website is an incredible resource for people to tap into everything you stand for. You have countless courses, books, and a plethora of digital content for people to learn more about what it is that you actually do and how you can help them unlock their potential to live extraordinary lives. For people who have just commenced their journey towards deep transformation, where can you suggest they start?
Well, I think I can't claim anything on my website because I have a team that takes care of that. And I did have some influence on some of the content of what I wanted on there. I wanted it to be primarily educational. It's also, so there's hundreds of interviews. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of interviews. There's YouTubes, there's the Demartini Show, there's books, like you say, there's articles, hundreds of articles. I wanted it to be a place where people could go and help them empower all 7 areas of their lives. But I think that Clarissa Judd, who's my director in South Africa, who coordinated the whole thing, deserves much of the credit for that, because a lot of the real work went into her and a gentleman named Seamus and others that put that thing together. But if they go to the website, they can spend hours on their learning. But the first thing I would do is have them go to the value determination segment and do their value determination, and do that now, do it a week from now, do it a month from now, and do it 3 months from now. And every 3 months do it again. Because what that does is it holds you accountable to look objectively at what your life demonstrates is truly important to you. So you have a foundation to set priorities by that is grounded not because of what society expects, but what your heart directs. And in so doing, you'll end up building up a momentum, an incremental momentum of greater achievement. So I would go there first on the website and then work around that.
Excellent.
And the website is drdemartini.com.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
So drdemartini.com.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you so much, Dr. John Demartini. I'm absolutely stoked, and from a place of deep gratitude and love, I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us this week on the Healthy Habit Hot Seat. Make sure to visit lozlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, I'd be stoked with a 5-star rating on iTunes. Better still, tell a friend and share the love. If you loved this episode, you might want to check out my book, The Healthy Habit Handbook, available in softcover, ebook, and audio form on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Balboa Press, and all good bookstores. Be sure to tune in for our next episode for your fortnightly dose of inspiration from some of the world's most successful and healthy lifestyle masters. Remember, stay inspired. I'm Loz Antonenko, and ciao for now.